As I was talking to the deacons of the church yesterday, they asked me how I preach, how I teach. And I mentioned that I go by the lectionary. And one of the reasons why I go by the lectionary is it keeps me from my hobby voice. So, and it keeps me uncomfortable. And this text this morning is definitely uncomfortable when you begin to look at it. And so what I'm going to do this morning is I'm going to go through just a little, not too much, but just a little bit of commentary. And you may agree with it, you may disagree with it, and that's fine. I'm not saying that I agree with it, just a few things that I noticed and some commentary that I read. But I will point out a few things that I think that we can take away from today's scripture reading. Without further ado, let's pray. Heavenly Father, your word is a lamp to our feet, and it's a light to our path. May we hide your word in our hearts that we're not sin against you, O God. By your word we may become edified. May we be morally and intellectually made better, because we've not only been in your presence, but we've sat at your feet and we've heard a word from you. Lord, we're not perfect people, but we're yours. We're your children. We ask that you would open our hearts, open our minds and our ears, that we may hear your word, and that we may receive your word this morning. Forgive us where we fail you, fall short. Cleanse us from all unrighteousness. Help us go out into the world with a passion for you and a passion for you. Father, I'm not perfect, but I'm yours. I am your servant. Here I am, send me. Forgive me where I failed. Wash me clean of all my unrighteousness. Perfect me in your love. May my lips be yours, may my mind be yours, may my heart be yours, may my tongue be yours. I pray this in Jesus' name. And all God's people said, Amen. Today's scripture title is God Changed His Mind, Faith, Fortitude, and Favor. This is an interesting, difficult scripture, as I've said before. And as I was doing my study and preparing for today's sermon, I went through some commentary that I was used to from my seminary days. In fact, I went to the seminary library and looked up their plethora, cache of commentaries. And I ran across a commentary from a New Testament scholar. Her name is Sharon Rainey. And this is what she says. A little excerpt from her commentary. She says, the exchange between the woman and Jesus reverses the pattern usually found in such stories. Usually, a situation or event provokes a hostile question from some onlooker to Jesus, to which Jesus responds with a correcting or reproving question, and then drives home his point by a concluding statement which the opponent would be hard put to deny. In this story, however, it is Jesus who provides the hostile saying, and the woman whose retort trips him up and corrects him. One thing that I noticed in it, and I wanted to point out, is that Jesus' gift of healing was not exacted from him through faith. For example, the woman with the 12-year hemorrhage, if you remember, if only I could reach out and grab the hem of his robe, I'll be healed. And she had spent all of her money and exhausted all of her efforts to find healing. She touches the robe of the hem of Jesus. He notices power come out of her. And he basically says, go, your faith has saved you. Your faith has made you well. Jesus' gift of healing was not exacted from him through faith, but was granted to her, this woman in our story today, by her persistence. For example, when she says, Lord, help me. And yes, Lord, yet even the dogs eat the crumbs from their master's table. I can't tell you how many people I find who believe that they are unworthy of God's grace to the point of complete hopelessness. They just completely give up. If you can believe it, I'm going to make a confession. I used to be a bouncer at a nightclub a long time ago. A preacher's kid. Can you imagine a nightclub bouncer? But it was a great opportunity for ministry there. And years later, one of my great friends who I bounced with, who I met several years later, gave his life to Christ. And if I was only there for him, it was worth it. But I remember one of the managers there, she asked about me, and I told her I was, the son of a preacher man, And she said, what are you doing in a place like this? And I just began to tell her, well, God opened the door for me, and I needed a job, so I took it. So, and I said, do you go to church anywhere? And she said, oh, no. I don't belong in a place like that. But that's what I mean. That's the example that I remember from my experience. People completely give up. They look at God or the things of God, and they deem themselves unworthy. They're not worthy. They don't belong in a place like this. They're not holy enough, or they're not good enough. However, even if that were true, the Canaanite woman shows us that with enough fortitude and faith, one can truly gain favor from God. Indeed, it is already there. One can gain favor from God, and indeed, it is already there. For truly God is slow to anger and abounding in mercy, Psalms 103:8 tells us. I think that we have to recognize not only Jesus' divinity here, but also, and more importantly for our sakes, for the story today, his humanity. Jesus was a Jew, and he was a good Jew. In his humanity, his mission was, as Paul later on rightly said, first to the Jew, then to the Greek. Even Paul expressed his great desire for his Jewish brothers and sisters to believe on the Lord Jesus, and yet they would have none of it. So, if you remember from reading the book of Acts, Paul ends up preaching to the Greeks as his main mission field. So too, Jesus' part was, I believe, my beliefs won't change, I guarantee it. But I believe first and foremost to his Jewish brothers and sisters. But then, why travel to from predominant Jewish territory to Phoenician, Syrophoenician, as Mark says. Mark calls the woman a Syrophoenician woman. Why travel to Phoenician territory of Tyre and Sidon to then go back towards the Sea of Galilee? If you look at the map, that is a long way. Why go all that way? Why go from the Sea of Galilee all the way to the coast on foot with disciples who are hungry, who are griping? Why go all that way? If your mission is to the Jews, and then to walk all the way back to the Sea of Galilee, that is a long and dangerous, I might add, journey. Why do it? That's one heck of a detour if you look on the map, especially traveling on foot. Well, maybe Jesus was there to see if he would find faith among the people there. Matthew is not clear about the agenda here. We know of no reason why Jesus went there. He performs one miracle and leaves. That's it. Today, I want to point out three things that we can glean or we can gain from the Canaanite woman. Her fortitude, her faith, and God's favor because of her persistence in prayer. Sometimes, God just shows up out of nowhere. And when He does, what will be our response? And will we be ready? What will be our response, and will we be ready? And when He does come, will we be able to change His mind about us? First, let's look at the woman's faith. If you have your Bibles open, if you want to turn with me, that's fine. In verse 22, it says, "Just then a Canaanite woman from that region came out and started shouting, 'Have mercy on me, Lord, Son of David! My daughter is tormented by a demon.'" How would this woman, who is a Canaanite, know anything about Jewish tradition? It is possible, I suppose, however, it is surprising due to the facts of that time that she lived in. First of all, she's a woman. Women in this world have little to no privilege, including the privilege of education. She most likely did not have access to Jewish literature to know anything about Jesus concerning Him being, quote, Son of David. However, word of Jesus and His disciples has most definitely gotten around and reached the ears and hearts of many people throughout the Mediterranean world by this time. The Phoenicians were known to be a great seafaring people, which was already tied to their form of commerce. That was their form of commerce. The Jewish people, on the other hand, were not a seafaring people. They were not a seafaring people. To them, the sea was dangerous and scary. People go out there and they don't come back. There are all kinds of scary creatures out there. There are Leviathan and great fish that swallow up prophets out there. Therefore, it is conceivable that in Greek-Jewish commerce relations, talk about Jesus, the miracle man, and or the Son of David, had reverberated enough by this time to catch the ear of the downtrodden there. Because if you read in Luke's Gospel, that was Jesus' ministry. He opened up the scroll of Isaiah and He said, "I've come to give sight to the blind and make the lame walk," and so on and so forth. Didn't say anything about dying on the cross, by the way. so is the woman. And she begins to cry out to him in desperation concerning her daughter's demon possession. She is helpless and gives a last-ditch effort for someone to help. She puts all of her belief in Jesus and his reputation as the miracle man, or as the son of David, that Messiah language. Unlike Peter in chapter 14, which, again, I have to preface for a second. You missed that. I think that was last week, I believe. We talked about Peter walking on the water. So unlike Peter in chapter 14 here, in his attempt at walking on the sea, begins to drown to his little faith, the Greek woman shows great faith. Isn't it interesting that the ones who are closest to the Lord seem to always show little faith, while those who have never heard or never cared, when confronted with something like a physical or a mental illness, show great faith? That's not always the case, but many times that is the case. What about us here today? What is it that you can't get past? What is it that makes you think that whatever is in your way can't be moved by God? Maybe you have prayed for the Lord to have mercy on you for whatever ails you, but yet you think that God has made up his mind. And yet you look at the faith of the Canaanite woman this morning. Look at her faith. You have to have faith. You have to believe. I suppose great faith is great, and little faith is better than no faith. I want us to look, secondly, at the woman's fortitude. Go to verse 23 and we'll read through verse 27. But he, being Jesus, did not answer her at all. And his disciples came and urged him, saying, "Send her away, for she keeps shouting after us." He answered, "I was sent only to the lost sheep of the house of Israel." But she came and knelt before him, saying, "Lord, help me." He answered, "It is not fair to take the children's food and throw it to the dogs." She said, "Yes, Lord, yet even the dogs eat the crumbs that fall from their master's table." We see here that faith has to be persistent with God and persistent in God. Those that seek God with their whole heart will find him. That's what God's word says. They who seek me with their whole heart shall find him. As I read this story in the Gospel of Matthew, I was immediately reminded of a parable that Jesus gives in Luke's Gospel, chapter 18, verses 1 through 8, which says, "Then Jesus told them a parable about their need to pray always and not lose heart." Their need to pray always and not lose heart. He said, "In a certain city there was a judge who neither feared God nor had respect for people. In that city there was a widow who kept coming to him saying, 'Grant me justice against my opponent.' For a while he refused. But later he said to himself, 'Though I have no fear of God and no respect for anyone, yet, because this widow keeps bothering me, I will grant her justice, so that she may not wear me out by continually coming to me.'" We'll stop there for just a second. That is a bad translation, by the way. It's more of, "so that she won't beat me black and blue." You better believe it. Verse 6, it says, "And the Lord said, 'Listen to what that unjust judge says.'" You have ears to hear? Listen. He's saying, listen. Pay attention. And will not God grant justice to his chosen ones who cry to him day and night? Will he delay long in helping them? I tell you, he will quickly grant justice to them. And yet, when the Son of Man comes, will he find faith on the earth? You see, faith is almost useless without persistence in prayer. They both work hand in hand. But when faith meets persistence in prayer, it is what we call fortitude. For without faith, it is impossible to please God. And James says, what is faith without works? Faith without works is dead. That's what he meant. You can't just have faith and not do anything. You have to have faith and you have to act it out. You have to act your faith out. That's what we see in the Canaanite woman this morning. And we must have persistent faith. God is looking for faith that is tenacious, that won't back down. And throughout the entire Bible, we find that when faith meets fortitude, God's mercy is poured out. What about us here today? When God comes to walk among us unexpectedly, will he find us to be brave in our faith and trust in him to do what we need him to do for us? Lastly, I want us to look at the favor of God. Verse 28 says this: Then Jesus answered her, Woman, great is your faith. Let it be done for you as you wish. And her daughter was healed instantly. Such persistent struggle in prayer, Jesus designates as great faith, and immediately heals the woman's daughter. The exorcism is called a healing, and is reported in words particularly identical to the concluding words of the story of the centurion servant in common. That story goes a little something like this from Matthew's Gospel, chapter 8, verse 5 and 10 through 13. Saying this, when he entered Capernaum, this Jesus, a centurion came to him, appealing to him and saying, Lord, my servant is lying at home, paralyzed, in terrible distress. And he said to him, I will come and cure him. No, this man isn't an Israelite. The centurion answered, Lord, I am not worthy that for you to come under my roof, but only speak the word and my servant will be healed. For also I am a man under authority, with soldiers under me. I say to one, go, and he goes, to another, come, and he comes, to my slave, do this, and the slave does it. When Jesus heard him, he was amazed. He was caught off guard. And he said to those who followed him, his Israelite brethren, truly I tell you, no one in Israel have I found with such faith. And to the centurion Jesus said, go, let it be done for you according to your faith. And his servant was healed at that very hour. You see, faith and works work together. It's not that works save you. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that your faith you can't just tuck it in. You have to actually live out your faith. James says faith without works is dead. And from the Canaanite woman and the centurion and all the people we've looked at thus far, it was not just faith, but it was persistence. It was faith acted out. It was faith acted out. Cultural, ethnic, political, economic, and religious barriers and prejudices operate in this scene. The woman successfully challenges an excluding focus on Israel's covenant privilege to experience God's blessing and Jesus' somewhere on the border of Galilee and the predominantly Gentile cities of Tyre and Sidon. Jesus meets the unnamed woman, a Canaanite, the native inhabitants of the land displaced by Israel's occupation. If you remember, in the Old Testament, Israel occupies the Canaanite land as the land flowing with milk and honey. Despite this long history of antagonism and her Gentile identity, she seeks Jesus' merciful help for her demon-possessed daughter. Jesus initially ignores her, claiming a mission only to Israel. With submissive and persistent action, she outwits Jesus, recognizing Israel's temporal priority in God's purposes, but rejecting any exclusive focus. Food and crumbs refer to God's empire of saving activity. Jesus identifies her persistence and dependence, not only on faith, but on Him. And so He heals her daughter. And I'll end with this. God is looking for unwavering, tenacious faith. When He comes to us, will He find us faithful and full of faith? There is nothing that can be done supernaturally without faith. We see that over and over again in the Gospels. And then, in some extreme cases, faith working with the works. Faith without works is dead. Prayer. Consistent, tenacious, brave prayer working with faith. You have to pray for quite some time. Maybe you have been praying for quite some time now that God would answer your prayer, and yet you don't seem to find the answer you are looking for. Maybe you need only to be more tenacious, as our Greek friend in the Scripture was. You see that Jesus and His disciples were seemingly uninterested in the woman's need for healing. And yet He changed His mind. Why? Because of her, quote, great faith, because of her tenacious faith and fortitude, acting through prayer. There is something deep within the recesses of our hearts that wants to give up, but cannot give up. But it is up to us to work at finding the strength